Well, I want to thank you all for having me here. As I indicated, it's been 10 years since I've been sitting in this seat, and it's been a wonderful 10 years. I've thoroughly enjoyed being a judge. Thankful that the public entrusted it to me. While I've been on the bench for 10 years, I also served 5 years as the president judge, and that was a great honor when I was unanimously selected by my fellow peers. But we believe as a bench that we've done a very good job. We work extremely well together, all 10 of us. There are 9 now, because we have a vacancy at the time because of retirement. But everyone is covered for each other. We think it's been, we've moved the ball in the right direction from worst we came, and looking forward to another 10 years.
Okay. One of the reasons we have 6 retention elections this year is because of that big turnover in the kids for cash case, etc. Can you kind of reflect on what that 10 years has been like? Obviously, there was kind of a cloud hanging over the bench when you folks arrived.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the kids for cash, and that was a low point for the judiciary, for the bar, for the county. And when we came into it, rightfully so, I think that had brought people to some skepticism of the court system. And we've worked very hard as a group to make the courts transparent. We have court on bank meetings once a month, which I believe, I've told, that was given up at some time. So everyone knows what each other are doing. We share information. We also have done a lot of things that really should have been done a long time ago. For instance, assignment of cases. No one has the ability to just assign a case to someone. Everything's randomized now. So if you have a civil case, it's going to go into a system that gets sent out to a judge on a random basis, and then we put in a protocol for recusal. So if you feel you have to recuse, you put that in writing as to why you're recusing. We also, at the beginning of cases, if we think that there's anything that could give rise to an issue, for instance, if we know somebody in the case, but we don't really think that it's a recusal situation, we just make that known to them. We also disclose, although we're getting further away from the time when we did accept money when we were running for office last time, most of the larger gifts that we received would have been from friends and family who never would appear before us anyway, but we try to remember and disclose those things as well. So I think, having watched where we were when we first came into where we are now, the sense I get is that I believe the public trusts the court system. I'm a firm believer that an independent judiciary is so important, and you have to have trust in the system. We issue orders that are obligations, and if people don't trust the system, they won't follow those orders. And every day on TV and in the press, we hear about people that are saying you shouldn't follow subpoenas, or they make arguments that mislead people. And we really have to focus on that we are a branch of government that has to remain transparent and has to remain impartial so we can continue to gain the public trust.
So coming in 10 years ago, you had been in private practice. You were also in the DA's office for a while. So you knew your way around the courthouse. What surprised you when you got on the bench? Is there something that was unexpected? Something that maybe, worked in a way that you didn't anticipate? Or?
I was surprised at the volume, honestly, in certain areas. Now, I did not do a lot of work in the area of protection from abuse, for instance, and I had no idea that there would be that sort of volume. That's a daily thing that goes on at the courthouse. We have ex partes every day, morning and afternoon. That's when somebody initially comes in, and we hear their side of it and choose to put in or not put in emergency relief, and then they get a hearing within 10 days. That was amazing. I was also surprised about the backlog. There was a large backlog in civil cases. If you look back when we first came in, there were 14,000 or maybe more than that cases sitting in civil. A lot of them were stale cases. And on the criminal side, things moved rather slowly through the system. So that gave us as a group, when we would sit down and sort of brainstorm as to which way we were going to try to guide the courts, places that we knew we had to work on, that we had to work in the civil division of getting rid of stale cases. And when I say, if ever I refer to that I do something, it's not I, it has to be collectively. None of this gets done without, the whole group working together. And so, but we have done a good job, I think, of getting rid of cases that were just sitting, that were referred to as stale cases. We send out notices. If people aren't going to move those cases and they've been sitting for sometimes 10 years, there's a mechanism that those cases eventually will get dismissed. On the criminal side, and I know you're all aware of it, but proud of the fact that we put it back in a central court system. That's had many benefits in terms of helping with the backlog on the criminal side, and also focusing on working with the prison to try to bring down the overcrowding of the prison population. And I can speak more later to the central court system, which is one of the things I'm probably most proud of.
As with the courts kind of being locked down, I guess, or a period of several months there where it was, there weren't any person hearings and stuff, has that had any kind of a negative impact on the backlog as well?
Yeah, the pandemic's been difficult, I know, for society as a whole, but certainly for the court system, and had to quickly focus on what was most important and what were the emergency matters. So during the pandemic, we all worked together to come in on certain days to deal, as I say, with PFAs. They don't stop because of a pandemic, and so we had to come up with protocols to be there for the ex partes. The preliminary hearings and the have to continue. The guardianships, for instance, had to continue because we have an elderly population here, and we've got a lot of people that honestly don't have any family, and so it's the nursing homes who are bringing the cases because they have no one to speak and make medical decisions on behalf of these people. So it was a difficult time, and we had to pivot a lot of different ways as a group, but a lot of positive things have actually come out of the pandemic in terms of restructuring the court system and some of the technology improvements that we've made, and some of the things that will go forward from here on we'll do, I think, more efficiently because we now have a better setup to do it.
You talked about working with the prison and the prison population. There's a big expansion in diversionary programs. Can you talk a little bit about those and maybe where the court's headed in that direction?
Sure. I think that's one of the most important areas we can get to. So the benefit of a central court system where there are many benefits, but speaking just to the diversionary, once we got a central court system set up, we actually were able to start identifying the major areas at the earliest stage of the criminal process. So we're talking about mental health is probably, I would say, the number one problem, along with drug addiction, alcohol addiction. And we also were able to streamline our veterans through that process. So when initially Catholic Social Services used to do our DUI program, they did all the CRIN reports. When they decided to give that up, we took it in-house, and actually hiring many of their staff who've been very experienced. They actually will sit at central court now. So for instance, on the old DUI system, now it's a fast track system. It used to be that you might apply for ARD, you have to get a CRIN, which is what identifies the many factors that the judge relies upon as to what treatment they're going to order. Well, it would take so long, it would take 7 or 8 months to get through that process. By the time you got through it, somebody might have a second DUI or a third DUI. And so now with central court, they get their CRIN and can get it that day. And so we move them right over to one judge then who can handle those. If we spot a mental health problem, we've got people from our treatment courts, which we now have, and we're looking to expand dramatically. We have people at central court who identify if there's an underlying alcohol problem, drug problem, mental health problem, and they can make application for specialty court right there. So, Dave, I think you're right. I think that's an area where I think the courts want to focus and continue to grow and are growing. They've expanded. Judge Skorowski runs those courts, and they're expanding. We're giving them more space, more staff, and I think that's so important. And that has the trickle effect that, I mean, prisons aren't set up to treat mentally ill. That's not where our people with mental conditions should be. They need treatment, and while the prison does a good job, if we can divert the people who are nonviolent criminals, who have the drug problems, who have the alcohol problems, who have the mental health problems, and get them in treatment, that will have the effect of lowering the prison population, which has to happen.
So you've been there 10 years, and I know you folks rotate assignments, or at least what courts you do. So, I mean, what kind of cases have you been doing over the last 10 years?
So I started out, I've been primarily assigned to civil the whole time. I'm head of the orphans court, so that's all the estate matters and the guardianships. And I did initially, for the first so many years, do some criminal and was on the homicide list. Now we've structured it so that we're more sectionalized. So there are 3 judges doing the criminal. There will eventually be 3 in family court, which is just booming. And there are going to be 4 of us doing the civil. We'll continue to do that. So I do a lot of medical malpractice cases, and that's not by virtue of the fact that we don't have great doctors here. We do, but why I think we have so many of them is because we've got 3 major health providers in one county. We've got CHS, we've got Geisinger, and we have Lehigh Valley. So we have a lot of healthcare providers here. So we do have a fair number of medical malpractice cases, but I'll be staying in the civil division, at least for the near future. I'll continue to oversee the orphans court, though I think one of the new judges, my understanding from our present judge, will probably help me in that area, since we've gone from 5 civil judges down to 4, or we will go from 5 to 4. We're picking up a larger caseload, and we're also went to independent calendars, which means we get the cases at their earliest time, which I think makes sense. We hear everything then for the case once it's filed. On the guardianship side, I do want to tell you that one thing I'm very proud of, and we started as soon as we got in, and so guardianships, as you know, when someone's rendered incapacitated, we appoint a guardian, and that guardian's going to handle, it could be a guardian of the person or the estate. If it's the person, they make all their medical decisions, including life and death decisions. If it's guardian of the estate, they handle all their finances, and usually it's both, right? There was no way to track these guardians when I first came in. We didn't really know how many there were. And they're supposed to file annual reports, and there was no tracking mechanism as to whether they were doing that. This was not an issue just for Luzerne County, it was statewide. And under the Supreme Court's direction, there's now a guardianship tracking system, a statewide guardianship tracking system, and I serve on that statewide committee. And it's been terrific, because what it does is it allows people to file their reports online. And even if they still do them by hand, and very few do, they all get put in the system. Then that system automatically notifies my chambers if someone hasn't filed a report, and it also flags things in the report. So if you see that someone had X amount of money and suddenly that's dropped dramatically, we get a flag. Then we review those, and we, if they're not filing reports, we bring them into court. If there's a deviation that's many times it's something that's pretty easy to explain, we take care of the flag. Somebody didn't know quite how to fill it out, and 99% of the time these things are fine. But we've had situations where I've had to remove guardians, for malfeasance, either not checking on the person that they're supposed to be. In one case, the person just gave up and dropped the incapacitated person off on public square. So this system is a great system, and that's happened over the 10 years I've been there, and it's all across the state.
We've been reporting this week on the hearings in federal court on the civil damage hearings in Kids for Cash, and it's kind of revisiting what juvenile court was like 10, 12 years ago. What have been the changes there, and I don't know how much involvement you've had with juvenile court, but I'm sure it's a topic that's come up in the court involved.
Yeah, and I can speak to it because I've had the benefit of being the president judge for 5 years. So in that capacity, I oversaw everything. The juvenile court system, now I didn't do a lot of juvenile work back in the day, so but I think our juvenile court is, one of the best in the Commonwealth at this time. We have a tremendous staff. It's has been overseen by several judges over the course of 10 years. It's very proactive. They've got a lot of interesting programs for the children. They've got excellent attorneys, both in the DA's office and the public defenders. Both have big departments now dealing with that. Some of the programs that they've instituted for these kids have been great. For instance, now I'm talking pre-pandemic. Some of these, I don't think last year we had the farm program, but it'll start back up. Where in Wyoming, most people don't know, we have a vegetable farm that these kids go and work on. They then harvest the crops. They come in, they actually set up and sell them. Like a farm, they do the farmer's market the day before our farmer's market. So our farmer's market's Thursday in Penn Place. You can come down there and you'll see these kids taking in money, making change. It gives them a lot of camaraderie. It gives them a lot of self-confidence. We have kids that have actually come back to the program even though they're out of the system to help out. And they use that money just to buy more farm equipment, that sort of thing, shovels and rakes and like. We also now do a family day in the park every summer for all the juveniles, and they get so if they have to do X hours of community service or whatever it is, they'll get credit for one coming to the picnic, and they'll also get some credit for bringing family members. And it's wiffle ball games, it's the public defender's office, DA's office, judges, the whole staff comes over, and the staff of the juvenile department put that entire thing on at no cost to the taxpayer. It's all their own money, and they do hamburgers, hot dogs, DJ. What's fascinating was if you go to those events and you talk to these kids, you're amazed to see that because they're products of perhaps a broken family or they've never had a cookout, like they've never been to something like this, and it takes them a while to get them a little bit out of their shell, but then they start playing games and things. These are the things that humanize that whole process. And so I can just speak to where the office is now, and the office is in a wonderful place now, I think under great leadership over there. And the staff is extremely dedicated.
You talked a little bit about fundraising and how you deal with that as in recusal situations, etc. You kind of indicated you're not raising as much money for this kind of race. Can you talk a little bit about how you run a retention campaign, and are you raising money from lawyers or other people? Or
So the 6 of us who are up for retention all came in together. And as I've indicated, we've worked incredibly well together. So none of us have open committees. None of us are raising money. We're running on our records. We're all supportive of each other. The only thing that I believe we're going to do is we're going to have some poll cards that will have all 6 of our names on them on the day of election at certain polls. Otherwise, we're really running on our record. We feel that the courts are in a good shape. We hope that the people see it that way and have confidence in us, and that's the way we're going to run this election. So it is a totally different election than back in the day with TV commercials and that sort of thing.
Are there any other, you talked about a lot of the changes that have been made since Kids for Cash and all that. Are there any other areas of improvement you could that you want to see happen in the next term?
That's a very good question. I mean, if you've seen our courtrooms now with the pandemic, the way that the courts are set up, the best example I can give you is with the little uptick where the civil judges are all we're going back to the protocols we had in place. So for my med-mal case this next week, we'll have 14 jurors. 4 will be in the jury box, and all the others will be spaced around the courtroom. And if you look at our courtrooms now, we have a camera that's focused on the witness chair and big screens all the way around. I would like to see us continue, not with that, once we get through a pandemic, hopefully get everybody back in the jury's box, but the technology that we've learned how to use with having these big screens and having, it's good for the public too, because you all have sat in those big courtrooms, and it's hard to hear sometimes in the back. Now we have TV screens and better miking, and so, that's going to be, I don't see us getting rid of that. I think that's going to be something that we can continue to use. We want to continue to revamp these courtrooms and make them more accessible so people can hear. We have had complaints from some lawyers, older lawyers, who have hearing issues, and we want to address those issues. The other thing I really want to focus on, and I don't have a cure for this, I don't think any of us do, but again, I go back to mental health. If there's one thing that I think that we can do better, working with our agencies out there, who is diverting mental health and trying to get those people the treatment they need. So I would say, if I'm fortunate enough to be retained, and over the next 10 years, I would like to see a strong focus of the courts, as Dave said, brought up earlier, on the diversionary programs. But I really think that the mental health issue is something we as a nation have to get control of, and so hopefully there'll be a strong focus on that.